Good evening and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, is my good friend and co-host, Jim Stamm. Jim, before we introduce our guests, how are you doing today, brother?
Oh, I'm doing all right, Gary. My son lost his playoff hockey game last night, 5-4 in overtime. He's 6. He's bummed. But
man.
I know, right? That really upset you, didn't it?
Yes. I mean,
tell people why it upset you so much.
Jim and I were supposed to go to the Pirate game tomorrow night together and get the wives together and have a nice night out. And then he texted me at the beginning of the week, listen, some stuff changed with Ben. And I had to secretly root against my own nephew.
And they were the 1 seed and they lost. So I hope you're happy.
I feel like a monster, man. Let's go ahead and introduce our guest today. First up, most of you recognize our buddy Steve Feck. He's been here with us a couple times talking Bucs, so you know what he brings to the table. Steve, you got anything to add to that?
No, I mean you warned them. So, and again, if people are still tuning in, it's my hands are clean. So,
all right. So, and this time he's brought along his colleague from Jays on the Couch, Karen Suter. With the two teams set to play each other, both of you, welcome to the Fan Forum. This is going to be a fun talk.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
And it's Jays from the Couch.
Oh, Jays from the Couch. I typed it wrong. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's Drunks on the Couch. It's Jays from the Couch.
See, and I write for Bucs in the basement.
Basement, right.
So I should know this a little bit better. So here in Pittsburgh, the mood of the fan base should be fairly predictable, right? Doom and gloom as far as the eye can see. The Jays, on the other hand, are in the hunt for the wild card. So Karen, I'm going to start with you. I was taken aback a bit when reading some comments under some Jays posts. My God, you might suspect the roles were reversed. Why?
Oh my goodness, I really wish I could answer that. It's an ongoing source of frustration for me. The best way I can sum it up is this. In the offseason, the Jays on paper appeared to have put together a very, very strong team, and a lot of people had them picked to, if not win the World Series, at least go to the World Series. And they still absolutely could, but in terms of their regular season record, they haven't been as consistent as I think a lot of people expected. A lot of people expected them to be in the position that the Yankees are in, to be kind of running away with the AL East division. That hasn't been the case. They've been in a playoff spot every day this season. Earlier, they were leading the AL East. They slipped back a bit, unfortunately, and they've kind of bounced around among the 3 wildcard spots. But they're right in there. They're sort of hot and cold. I mean, you can kind of break down all of their season into, okay, these were a good stretch of games, followed by a not so good stretch of games, and they've really been up and down, but I feel that there's a certain segment of the fan base, at least those who take to social media, that if they win one, that's great. That's like +1. Anytime they lose one, instead of it being a -1, they seem to take it as a -3. And heaven forbid you lose 3 games in a row like they did this past weekend to the Angels. And there are people saying, oh, that's it. They're not even going to be a playoff team. And I'm just like...
It was crazy, Karen. I'm seeing things like sell the team. I'm like, what? I mean, so Jim, you remember when the Pirates were in the playoffs? It was, a decade ago.
Yeah, Go ahead.
This is striking a very familiar tone to when the Pirates were good. And the funny thing is, the negativity level has literally stayed the same. It really has.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if it's a phenomenon all of baseball. And we just think it's so Pirates, that we're this desperately angry. But when you hear things like this from Karen, what do you think?
You know me. I love my cross sports analogies, and the first thing I think of is it sounds like Penguins fans to me. Like when the Penguins are good, one game they win, Stanley Cup, here we come.
Don't
Then
turn
they
this
lose.
into a Leafs conversation.
But then they lose, and it's Fire Sullivan and Gino sucks, and but yeah. So it's fans in general, I think, and it goes across sports. But it's just crazy to me when you guys mentioned about, hey, let's talk about the fact that there are some Blue Jays fans that are unhappy. I mean, I almost blacked out. I'm thinking like they've been in the postseason chase all year. They play in an absolute nuclear warfare of a division of teams, right? So like, how would you not be happy with that? But apparently that's not the case. It really surprised me, Gary. I don't know, Steve, what do you think?
Well, I'm Professor Positive on my show. I never find fault with anything. But, I mean, Karen touched on it. I think the expectations were just so high. And honestly, I picked them to win the World Series. I mean, I was a true believer. I think what happens is that when they don't react to issues, injuries, bad performances, and they spend the offseason touting how they have all of this talent in the minor leagues, but then they really don't. I think that it just starts to kind of pile on top of each other. I mean, the
Right.
Pirates now, I mean, it's a totally different situation. I mean, in essence, they're an expansion team. When Cherington came in, he tore everything down and is building everything up from the ground up. Every part of the organization is new. So it's when Pirate fans look at Blue Jay fans and they're complaining, I can understand them saying, "Oh yeah, it must be really tough being a playoff team or whatever." But
No, I think it's not just the playoff team aspect of it. I think it's the star power. I mean, you've got Vladdy and Bouchette, and you guys got some monsters up there for real. That's to Pirates fans, that's an oasis. A lot of us have picked Toronto as our cheat team for that very reason, just so we have our toe in the water of a team that's semi close to us that's going to do something.
yeah,
So
I've had Pirate fans say, "How could they let Alek Manoah go on? Not get drafted by the Pirates? He's a backyard guy. He played ball, an hour away from us. How did he get to Toronto and not come to the Pirates?"
we're not going to talk about where he played school. I mean, not tonight. Not on Backyard Brawl night. We're not.
No, we're not going to do that.
Okay,
Not in a positive light, anyway.
So I should mention that on the college football podcast that I'm doing that I picked W. Okay, we'll gloss that over.
Cut the feed, Gary. Cut the feed.
It's just crazy to me, the similarities that you see, even when you're in the hunt, even when you have stars, escaping the negative environment that has become the comment sections of every available comment board there is populated with the same kind of stuff.
Well, and let me just say this in there. It's kind of ironic. You've got the Blue Jays with the best division and the Pirates probably in the worst division. And I would have just thought that Blue Jays fans kind of would have been giving them some credit for the fact of, I mean, we know about the Yankees. We know what the Rays are doing. Toronto's doing well. Baltimore is just coming out of not nowhere, but man, they're coming on strong. And the Red Sox are the worst team in the division. They're 5 games under 500. It's just, I would have thought there would have been given some credit there, but maybe not. Maybe fans just do not care, man.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk a little bit more about the overall league picture. All right, and welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Jim, Gary, Steve, Karen. We got a whole lineup today for everybody. We're going to talk a little bit about the wild card race in general, and we'll get around to the division races, I suppose, too. But a lot of those are kind of, I don't know, less entertaining than the wild card is right now. Blue Jays are right in the thick of it. You were talking about the importance of getting the home playoff series, for the Blue Jays. I mean, is that a moral victory, or has that got some kind of just it's time now?
Well, I mean, no, I think strategically you don't want to have to play all 3 games on the road. I mean, and that's how the wild card round is set up. So you really want to be the first wild card. So you at least have 2 home games, during the playoffs. But I think for the Blue Jays, and especially for Blue Jay fans, the team spent all of the shortened 2020 season on the road. Last year, they started at their training complex, then went to Buffalo, and then finally in July, they got to play some games at the Rogers Center. So I think it's not necessarily a moral victory. It's a morale victory for Blue Jay fans to be able to come out, and they've been coming out in droves to root for their team in the playoffs. I think
that's interesting.
I think we feel that we've earned the right to have a home playoff series only because of everything that got weathered.
I can see that entirely, yeah.
I was just going to say, it's funny. I just remembered the whole snafu with the Pirates and the Blue Jays with the pandemic, and the Pirates were going to let the Blue Jays play at PNC Park. And I think everyone kind of forgets about that. It just dawned on me and how quickly that went south. So, yeah, you guys have had, as a fan base, kind of wandering around the wilderness for a year and a half or so.
Yeah, well, so I mean, after all the plagues were over, they finally get home, right?
And Sean, our editor, and Karen probably wish that they had never thought about the Blue Jays playing in Pittsburgh, because that's how I got connected to Jays from the couch.
Oh, jeez.
Because I said, hey, look, they're going to be playing here. If you need somebody to, do an on-site thing or whatever, let me know. And then the next thing you know,
an absolute tragic turn of events.
Right. It wasn't bad enough that your team couldn't play in your home stadium. Now you have to have this loudmouth American come and rain on your parade every week. So,
well, I mean, that's how we came to know you too. So I guess you're right. It really was a devastating turn of events. But Karen, another advantage that you would get if you guys managed to get the home series is that, I mean, I don't want to act like it's fun that somebody decides not to get vaccinated and can't come into your country to play baseball, but hey, it's an advantage. If you get a team that somebody has decided not to, I mean, you guys know who those people are now from being in your division, I'm sure. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Some teams that there's been more than others. I think the Yankees, there were a couple of holdouts, and then they all ended up getting it. And the biggest one was the Kansas City Royals, but they're not a playoff team anyway. There were 10 of them.
Oh my!
One of them is now on the Blue Jays. So with Merrifield, he decided to get the shots so he could be traded to a contender. So, but yeah, I mean, there's that. I mean, without turning the show into something hugely political, people can choose, and choices have consequences. And
yeah, it doesn't need to be political. Right now it's a competitive advantage that is weird in the game, and I just think it's cool that you guys are in the thick of it and can actually make this something that matters a little bit, because it's definitely going to spark debate on both sides. Not unlike Novak Djokovic not playing in the U.S. Open right now.
Right.
Same kind of thing.
Yeah. And I want to pin that tweet to my profile because, no disrespect, gentlemen, but it seems like there's a lot of American sports fans out there who seem to think that Canada is the only country in the world with a vaccine mandate. And guess what? We're not. The U.S. has the exact same rules. So when they try to say, oh, Canada and the Jays, and they've got an unfair advantage and they got to drop this rule right away, blah, 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 the U.S. has got exactly the same thing. So,
No, I mean, that's the truth. And it's if you fly in, it's one thing. If you drive in, it's another. So, something that a lot of teams have been doing, I heard, was trying to fly into Detroit, drive across the border, catch a flight over to wherever they need to go, and be okay. And you can
interesting.
Yeah.
So, who do you guys fear the most in the AL? Who do you? Because we've seen the Yankees. I mean, I just saw where what a phenomenal start they had, and then I think they're on pace to have the fourth worst record for the Yankees team after the All-Star break. I mean, crazy stuff. So, who do you guys fear in the playoffs?
You want to take it, Karen, first?
Yeah, I think of all the realistic contenders that they've all got their strengths and weaknesses. No one's going to be easy to beat, but for some reason, and maybe it's the head-to-head matchup back when the Jays really weren't playing well, I'm afraid of Seattle a bit.
Yeah.
Something
interesting.
I hope that someone else, I hope they can finally go on a skid and someone else knocks them out of the playoffs.
I mean, they have a good team, and they've got a couple of those kids that are those kind of kids. Those ones that can just up and take over a series and put you out real quick. That's scary. I agree. I think Cleveland could bite somebody. I mean, because they don't even have names to target, really. It feels more like just some kind of happy accident that all came together and everything seems to be working.
Yeah. Jose Ramirez and who?
Right. I mean, Steve, what do you think? American League, and then we'll turn it over to National League a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to say Cleveland, though Karen's spot on. Seattle scares me as well because they're so young.
Yeah.
They don't know what they could be, right?
They don't know any better.
Yeah, right. But I mean,
you never know when somebody like Eugenio Suarez is going to go off and hit 10 in a row, for 10 games, because that can happen. It's in there.
I mean, it boils down to me with pitching. So I think the only team that doesn't match up as well, other than they're not going to see Houston in the first round, would be Cleveland. I think can match Toronto 1, 2, 3 better than any of the other teams. Other teams might have two starters you have to worry about that are going to be in the wild card round in that first round. But Cleveland worries me, and the Blue Jays hitters had no clue against the Cleveland pitching.
That's interesting.
When they were playing.
Yeah, the Cleveland pitching is always a problem, and they just manufacture it there like crazy. So does Tampa. So a lot of interesting stuff going on in the American League. National League, Jim, you and I should probably handle pretty exclusively here. Atlanta Braves are running away with the wild card. I mean, if they don't catch up and win that division, it feels like the wild card's there for them, like the number one.
Yeah.
And they're not too far off the New York Mets.
I was just going to say, Mets better watch out, right?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Gary, this is a Pirate show. The Pirates are 23 games out of a wild card spot.
They're still in it.
Still mathematically possible. So, let's not gloss over the fact that we're still in it.
Right. I think if we go 500, we avoid 100 losses.
Yeah, and there's probably a blogger or two out there that might even say, if they get hot, let's make a run at this thing. I'm not going to name any names, but hey, but no, okay, the Mets, they've. I don't take them as seriously. Maybe I should. I think Atlanta and LA to me are just the teams, man. That I personally think are in the best position. The Cardinals, I always want to count them out.
And we have the polar opposite of their division because our division is the worst by far.
Yeah. So to me, LA, Atlanta, I respect Atlanta so much for what they do. And I'm an Acuna Jr. fanboy. So, so Gary, what do you think? I mean, Who do you?
I'm
who
right
do you
with you.
think?
Atlanta to me, and LA's just starting to take on some blows now, injury wise. Though they're losing some good pitchers. Gonsolin just went down the other day. You don't know what Walker Bueller's going to look like. Who knows how long? You
Didn't
know,
they just didn't they just bring up a pirate?
an ex-Pirate.
An ex-pirate
Yes.
in the bullpen. It was somebody
Jake
not
Reed?
good.
No.
No.
Hembry.
Oh,
Yes.
Heath Hembree.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
It was Hembry. So
Well, he's
so
an
LA
ex
is starting to
everything.
get nicked up. Yeah, he is. But he's starting to get nicked up. They're nicked up out there. So I don't know what they're going to turn into in the playoffs. San Diego's borderline. But
I
San
didn't even talk
Diego,
about
like,
them.
just to wrap it kind of back into Toronto, am I wrong that San Diego kind of did what you would have liked them to do, Steve? Have some kind of sort of holes and go out and make them better, right? And look at what it's done to them.
Uh,
Does that educate you at all, or does that make you kind of like go, no,
No.
they just didn't do it right?
It's not even a matter of just not doing it right. Sometimes things just don't gel. You need to do it though, And I mean, and the Pirates are going to get there next year. I'm not saying the Pirates are going to contend for the playoffs next year. I think they're a 500 team next year, but they're going to have to start rolling the dice a little bit more. And Cherington
Right.
has never been afraid in his career to roll the dice. So it's coming time that, okay, if you try it, if it fails, at least you try. I will never get mad at a general manager that actually tries something.
See, I actually think that's the big hang up for us here in Pittsburgh with Cherington. I take your word for it. I've seen his history as well, but I've seen him do it with money. I need to see him do it without money. I need to see how unafraid he is to spin the wheel when he doesn't have a safety net of an owner that can spend $200 million if you screw up.
I have no fears over that. Cherington is the kind of baseball mind. I mean, he reminds me. Well, again, Dombrowski had money, but he didn't have money in Montreal and in Florida. Dipoto doesn't have money in Seattle, but he certainly had money when he was with Anaheim or Los Angeles or whatever they call themselves these days. So I think you just have to have a mindset. AA didn't really have the financial freedom in Toronto
Right.
that Atkins has. I think that Rogers is really committed to this now. I mean, Shapiro has a business plan. But if you have the mindset, payroll plays a very small role until it's time to to offer free agency once arbitration years go through. So I don't worry about Cherington whatsoever. When people come up and say, "Oh, Cherington's this or Cherington's that," okay, it's early. It's still in the early stages. Next year, if he's hasn't had things figured out and hasn't made the moves he needs to make, okay, then you can start criticizing. But again, this is an expansion team.
Let me ask Karen real quick, because this is something that we only have one kind of. I mean, the ownership group here is hated, loathed, despised, whatever adjective you want to come up with. There are no Bob Nutting defenders left, I don't think. Blindly. So Karen, there, like with the spending and the payroll, do fans there? Are they okay with it? Do they think it's been enough? Are they? And there are some. I'm not talking about the crazies. I'm talking about the fans that have a decent idea of what's going on. Are they okay with the spending there?
Right. I guess the short answer that I can give you is I don't really hear a lot of complaints about that. When I do hear complaints, it's not about that per se. So rewinding a little bit, it was 2015 when Mark Shapiro took over as club president. And that off season, I believe that's when he brought in his own guy, Ross Atkins, because they'd worked together back in Cleveland and blah, 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 to be the general manager. Yes, we know how Steve feels about Atkins. I remember at first when this happened, various different people that I talked to were convinced that, oh, Shapiro Atkins, look what they did in Cleveland. They just ruined that team and they're going to do the same thing to the Blue Jays. And I said a couple of points that I made was, first off, let's give them time and see what they're going to do, because we don't know what they're going to do here. And I mean, it's, to me, it's an apples and oranges comparison, because whatever money that Cleveland ownership has or does not have, they don't seem willing to spend the big bucks on the top players. I mean, even when they extended Jose Ramirez, he very much gave them a hometown discount. And
Yeah, a little bit.
who knows how that would have gone if he hadn't been willing to do that. But
Yeah.
it's interesting what you're saying about Cherington and what is he going to do type of thing, because I always felt that Toronto ownership and the front office, that when the time was right, they would be willing to spend. I mean, back in 2017, 2018, there wasn't much point because those teams weren't going anywhere. When it looks like they're getting close to playoffs.
See, we say that sort of thing too, and you can get crucified for that in this city. I'm just telling you.
Every Pirate fan's ears just perked up when they heard
you said that, and they're like, she's defending Bob. Oh, wait.
Well, I'm just saying, because we went through it, and then since then, that they have spent $80 million on Hyun-Jin Ryu, who was actually good at the beginning of his contract before he started getting injured and ultimately needing Tommy John surgery. But a year later, they brought in George Springer, and they've spent the big bucks to sign Kevin Gausman, trade for, and then extend Jose Barrios. I mean, to me, they're making a lot of the right type of moves that they should be making. So I think where there is some frustration among Blue Jays fans, it's not with how much they're spending, but maybe a move or two that they've made wasn't really the right move. Yusei Kikuchi, unfortunately, $36 million, and so far, it's like a bust.
Gotcha. Interesting.
So let's do a couple things. Let's do rapid fire real quick. I want to just get a few topics out on the table and answer them real quick, and then we'll move on. This one's going to start out Pirates, but I think you guys can pitch in because it's just interesting. So the Pirates decided that they were going to posthumously sign some players from the Negro Leagues and put them in their Hall of Fame. They were going to be in the Hall of Fame anyway. So this signing of players that are already dead, does that make any sense? I mean, I'm not mad about it. I'm just not sure I understand it. So I kind of wanted to get everybody's take on that. And Jim, I know I'm blindsiding you, but what in the world did you think? I'm not sure I can form an opinion on it.
You know, I'm so sarcastic on Twitter, and it goes over people's heads all the time, which actually makes me laugh and make me more sarcastic sometimes. But I wanted to crack a joke, but then I also didn't want to just be too disrespectful of you know.
Like,
but
I think I like where their heart was at, but I don't think it says what they thought it was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice gesture. I mean, I question the method that happens. I mean, do they get someone from the family bloodlines and they sign it, or is it just
are they going to give them some money? Like, I don't understand how it works.
I don't know. Yeah, so I backed off just because I didn't want to. I think that, like you said, their heart's in the right place, but I did laugh because I'm like, well, some of these guys aren't alive, so that's problematic.
And I won't force either of you two to answer this question. If you don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole, I understand it. But if you have anything to say, please add it now before I move on to the next subject. Anything?
You know, I'm sorry. I love it. There's two teams and two cities that could pull off a stunt like this as far as honoring Negro League players. Kansas City and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Okay. Negro Leagues revolved around the Kansas City Monarchs, the Homestead Grays.
Maybe Baltimore, D.C. too. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yes. Well, but again, right. But I think this move, I don't want to say it's a rodeo clown move where you're distracting them away from what's happening on the field, but I think it's really appealing to that hardcore, real Pirate fan. So from that standpoint, rather than having another bobblehead or another fireworks night, they're actually appealing to the true baseball fan, and I think it's great.
Well, I'm interested
And
by
this
the
is
whole
the
thing.
yeah, and this is the anniversary of the Pirates with their 1971 team, which fielded their first
Right.
That's a
all-black
great point.
lineup.
That's a great point, Jim. For
You
real.
know,
Maybe
yeah,
that makes it make a little more sense.
which
Like I
is
said, wasn't
yeah,
mad about it, just didn't understand it.
yeah. Well, I just chuckled at the fact of the impossibility of it.
Right. All right, this one's
You know,
very Blue
so
Jays related.
Okay.
Do we get Vladdy signed or what?
ooh,
Karen?
Yes, please. I really think of everything that they should probably try to address in the off season. That's number one on my wish list. I want him like that. There's never been a lifetime Blue Jay, and I really want him to be the first. There's just so many reasons why it makes so much sense, and I don't care about a hometown discount or whatever. Get him signed to make sure that he's still here in 10 years.
well,
That was a
and
truth bomb right there. I didn't know. That's pretty cool. Never had a
yeah.
lifetime player.
Not even Dave Steve, because Steve went to the White Sox. So
Well,
Wow.
and remind everybody why Toronto and teams in that market, why do they have a advantage for contractual reasons with players?
They have an advantage.
yeah,
What's
it's,
am I missing?
it's a disadvantage to the team because they're paying in American dollars and they're generating Canadian dollars.
That's what I'm trying to get at. So
Okay,
Disadvantage.
yeah,
Yes.
okay. So that makes it difficult. I don't think it gets done until he's actually a free agent because he doesn't need to sign it. It's not Julio Rodriguez, where literally, or Ronald Acuna, or Juan Soto, where it literally is generational wealth now. His family, for multiple generations, those players are now set. Vlad Jr.'s dad is a multimillionaire, and he's an even better businessman, so he's still making money. It's the
Right,
same thing with
right.
Bo Bichette. He doesn't really need. Bo could retire tomorrow, and I'm sure Dad will take care of him. He might have to do something, do baseball clinics or something. But
Karen's
really,
got her finger up. She's about to poke you.
yeah, yeah. But I
Well,
mean, honestly, I think that's why you don't see Vladdy or Bo, the two big names, sign the extensions early because they just don't have to.
Okay.
yes,
Karen,
good
what did you want
point.
to say?
yeah, so a couple things about that, and I'm sure that's a valid point, and maybe you're 100% correct about that. So two things for me. Yes, Vlad Senior made money when he was a player, is still making money now, and great for him. But if I'm Vlad Guerrero Jr., do I want to spend the rest of my life relying on my father for whatever financial support? Yes, he got a signing bonus, and I mean he's already made some money in MLB, but nothing compared to what he could. That's one of the things that I often say, that people say, oh well, the family doesn't need money, but to me there's a huge difference between being the one that earned the money and being able to control how and when it's spent. And okay, I want this, but the money's not mine, it's my dad's, and is he going to approve of these choices or whatever? So that's point number one. Number two, for me, from the Blue Jays perspective, again, all I keep hearing is, well, a lot of these other players who sign well before they're free agent eligible, they're taking good money in the first years, but they're buying. There's a trade off. At one point, they're signing for less than they could in order to, or they're getting more money earlier, giving up a couple of years of free agency or whatever, and all this. If to me, if I'm the Toronto Blue Jays, like pay him top dollar, sign him for, that some of the big contracts that are out there. What's the biggest one? Mike Trout or whatever it is. Like, give him that money now, even if you're paying more dollar wise in the next few years for doing it, because what you're getting in return is making sure that he stays here. And
I think a valuable lesson was learned with Fernando Tatis for some, though. I mean, those long-term contracts that you sign with kids before you really know what they're going to be, sometimes they turn out great. Sometimes they turn out like what Tatis has put on paper ever since he signed his. He's got all the talent in the world, but he's a knucklehead, clearly. I mean, and besides that, he's prone to injury.
Health, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
which is something you can't predict that. Hopefully,
did you ever watch that kid swing? You could predict it.
Well, yeah. To an extent, but you know what I'm saying in general terms with teams, that's usually the one thing. But you should have a good idea of kind of maybe what kind of character you have, like character issues. If there's is this a guy you're willing to give that kind of money to?
Yeah, but once you make that commitment, it could go one of two ways. And I think once you get to this point with Vlad, you've almost let him be sure enough about himself that that becomes difficult. I think that's why you approach these kids when they're young and unproven, because neither of you really know. So you can get away with a lower number because they're selling themselves as much as you're trying to sell them on staying with you for a long time. Like Brian Hayes could outplay his contract by halfway through it. Or
True.
They could end up being perfect if he keeps hitting like this.
Okay. The Blue Jays want to get it done. Karen's right. The Blue Jays want to get it done, and I'm sure they're going to try to get it done. I just think, and remember, Vladdy and Fernando Tatis are best buds. So Vladdy's going to look at what's going on there, and he goes, well, you know what? Maybe rather than bring that pressure upon myself earlier, I'm going to maybe try to enjoy myself a little bit, still make some money, and then maybe I really can cash in. Because by the time he becomes a free agent, they're going to have an idea of what the next CBA is going to be looking like. It won't be in place yet, but you're going to have a pretty good idea what the landscape is. So I think for Vladdy and Bo, there's going to be more zeros at the end of their contracts if they win.
Man, I love it.
I was just going to throw out one more thing here real quick. It's so interesting because we talk about, Gary, we get questions all the time about O'Neal Cruz and what people should, what should the Pirates do with him? And so it's like, when do you try to pull the trigger with these guys before they get too good, but yet you're trying to make sure that they're good enough? And so it's that delicate balance, that dance, and I think we're going to be dealing with that in Pittsburgh real soon, and we'll see. Like, it's a good problem to have, but but it's tricky too.
Yeah, I mean, let's take a quick break. Let's come back. I think we have a good call your shot for the four of us to tackle.
Gary, hey Jim, Doug Smith, self-proclaimed ambassador for Pittsburgh Pirates spring training. I am putting on my rally cap for the entire 2023 season because I feel like that's what we're all doing right now. But I saw you and me messing around looking for John Baker's history and what's going on, and it started to make me realize that maybe Dewey Robinson is a data point that we should pay attention to, because you look into a lot of the analytics staff and even the coaching staff, and they're all young, and they were picked because they're great, people. They know how to learn. They have open minds and all this sort of stuff. But I think Dewey Robinson was somebody the pitching staff could learn from. So I think, man, if I were, Cherington, I would think maybe I need to find some more people to learn from, because even the assistant GMs are sort of on the young side. So wanted to hear your thoughts about that. Go Bucs.
All Right, and that was Call Your Shot, and obviously we're back on the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. And, man, great question, Doug. I love it. And, we were talking about Dewey Robinson last week when we were talking about the Pirates potentially needing to make some coaching changes, and maybe there's some additions like that they need to make. Somebody that kind of can help coordinate the overall hitting structure. I certainly think they need to make some changes at the major league level, but you're right, Doug. It feels like they need more gurus because that guru has kind of started to show dividends pretty quickly. So, yeah, it should be something Cherington should invest in. And, Jim, I'm going to let you go first because you haven't yet. What are your thoughts on what Doug had to say? And then I'd like our Toronto friends to kind of talk about, what Cherington did there, because he was pretty responsible for this area of things in Toronto, and basically compare and contrast it from when he was there to when he left.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it brief just because, I think it's the obvious question that needs to asked. And I mean that in a very complimentary way to Doug, in just the sense that we're at that point, I think, where we need to get some help on that side of things. I mean, I think it's crystal clear. So I would be going to these organizations that have had some success recently. I mean, if you got to go raid the Rays again, I don't care, but just make sure you got enough people on board to get this thing up to speed on that side of things, because you're on a time frame, and they talk about urgency. Cherington likes to use the term urgency. There's some urgency. So I think it's definitely something they need to do. And I would just, like Gary said, I'd just throw it to you guys and ask, from on the Blue Jays side of things, how has that worked out, or what have you guys seen on the developmental side of things?
Karen?
Steve, you know much more about this than I do.
Okay, all right. Well, basically, there's two things there. I mean, the Blue Jays have done that from a pitching standpoint, because Pete Walker is the face of Blue Jays pitching. And that goes back even before, they brought on Montoya and all those things. I mean, he's the face of Toronto Blue Jays pitching strategy. So I think it is important. Now, Cherington didn't have the hiring power to bring in, coaches or whatever it is. That ultimately was up to Atkins and the farm director. But Cherington certainly had input as far as the type of players they should be seeking from a drafting standpoint, as well as Rule 5 or minor league free agents. I think the great thing for the Pirates, and it might not be Dewey Robinson, but what a great idea, is there are so many teams that are already kind of in flux as far as either having interim managers or bringing in new managers. There's a lot of GMs on the hot seat.
Yeah.
There's going to be turnover.
You might be able to pluck somebody.
Exactly. And Cherington certainly is connected enough. That's the great thing for the Pirates of having Cherington. And that's why he was so valuable in Toronto, because Atkins could pick his brain. Tony LaCava, great baseball man, Pittsburgh guy. He was never been in the seat. Cherington was in the hot seat, in one of the hottest seats in baseball in Boston. So,
right.
He could rely on that. But I think the Pirates, I mean, again, all of these things are just coming together where you can get an upgrade in your coaching and in your instructional staff. And your talent, even at the lower levels, has advanced enough that you need to get more experienced instructors to take them to the next level. I think they have the basic fundamental applying, using analytics as well as practical baseball skills. They have that in place already where it's at. But as far as getting them to the next level, I don't think you have that in the Pirate system. So I think it could, I think Cherington's experience and connections and the fact that there's going to be people out there, I think it bodes really well for the Pirates.
And Karen, you were just saying in the last segment, maybe you guys aren't seeing as many prospects as you thought you should, right? I mean, is the system providing in Toronto, or be blunt, you guys have sold off a decent amount of them trying to patch holes. So how do you tell?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fairly happy overall with what has happened with the farm system since this front office has taken over. They said early on their biggest priority was to rebuild the farm system, and a few years later, it was one of the top farm systems, maybe not the top, but it was ranked pretty highly. And then what happened with that, as you said, so a number of those prospects have been traded away. They traded away two of their higher prospects just a year ago to bring in Jose Barrios. They traded basically four prospects to get Mac Chapman for 2 years. And also another, they're not just trading these guys away. Two of their higher ranked prospects from a year plus ago have now graduated, and they're all stars with the Toronto Blue Jays, Alek Manoah and Alejandro Kirk. So I personally, I'm pretty happy with the farm system management. Somewhat predictably, because of all of this, they've now fallen back down in terms of the rankings. But
which is what I'm actually looking at right now. Just to let you know, because I was curious. I don't follow them closely enough, so I was like, I wonder where they're at right now.
Right, but on the other hand, they had 4 picks before the end of the second round this year because they had their own first and second round, and they had two players that went elsewhere that were all offered qualifying offers and didn't stay. So they got 4 pretty decent looking prospects from the look of it, and I think they've done with what they have to work with. It seems to me that they've done the best job that they can, and they're restocking the cupboard, so to speak, and I'm pretty happy with that aspect of it.
So they can cultivate players that aren't sons of other Major League Baseball players? Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Right, sounds good.
Well, I mean, another common thread here between the two teams and the systems, they draft and develop hitters, pitchers. I mean, I think the best of their pitching prospects, with the exception of maybe one, are already up with the Blue Jays. I do worry about their pitching, just like with the Pirates. We don't really know, are these young pitchers are they really going to be able to come through at the major league level?
Nobody knows about pitchers.
Or are there enough of them is another thing too. No. So yeah,
there's never enough of them on any team, really. Right. But I know I think that development systems are interesting to watch because you have so many different philosophies. You can advance guys too fast. You can have some that want to go too slow. But I loved what you said earlier, Jim, about cherry picking some of these other teams. We talk about how much we admire Atlanta and how they've been onboarding people and getting people through their system quickly. Well, that would seem to be a need for a team like the Pirates, especially if they want to function the way they are. So maybe go and see if there's a couple gurus you can grab from them, right?
Hey, listen, if you're not going to open the checkbook on the major league level with players yet, do it behind the scenes. I mean, this is where you can make up some ground, or should be trying to. So,
not that any fan is going to be on Twitter going, I feel better now. They hired a hitting guru for the single A Bradenton Marauders, and now but you want it
certainly.
Nerds like us are kind of like, all right, like Dewey Robinson. I know you and I were both geeked. Like,
yeah.
Which looking back on it's kind of funny, but.
Well, I mean, you just look at like what the track record is, right? I mean, like, so then you see that and you're like, well, it's got to be better than what we're doing here, and so you do get excited about it. But the other thing I just wanted to bring up was Alex Stumpf had a really good article with he sat down with Andy Haynes, the hitting coach of the Pirates, and if you get a chance to read it, I give Alex a lot of credit. He asks a lot of good questions and got the interview. And I actually, my Andy Haynes guy, no, but he answered a lot of questions. I don't know that I'm all that much more clear about things, but it's a really good read if you get a chance to do it from a Pirates fans' perspective.
Yes, very wonderful circular conversation. I
It
appreciate him
was.
asking the questions, but they were master class. He could probably run for Congress.
He was well spoken, and I mean that in a semi-complimentary way.
Sort of, kind of. So, hey, we should probably wrap up the show. Let's actually preview this series, huh? How cool is this?
Yeah.
So you got Toronto and Pittsburgh here. Anybody injured we should know? Or are we going to see all the stars? What should we expect from the Blue Jays?
Yeah, who's on the IL? I mean, as I mentioned earlier, Hyun-Jin Ryu's done for the year. He had Tommy John surgery, and other than that, I'm trying to think. Steve, is anyone significant on the IL? A couple of relief pitchers on the 60-day, but
yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be. You may not see George Springer for all 3 games. I think there might be some players that you see rested, but for the most part, the clock has run out. I mean, if this was May or June, you might have missed
different
out on
story,
something. Right? But I mean, now every game is important, so you are going to see the best that the Blue Jays can put out there. I mean, Alek Manoah throws Friday. Of course, that's the one game I can't go to is when my guy, Alek Manoah is pitching. But
we'll be there, and I hope he sucks. I just wanted to say that.
I'm telling you, it's going to take 1 inning, and you're going to fall in love with him.
No, we already wanted to trade for him a couple years ago. Right. We hoped and prayed you guys were dumb enough to take Josh Bell for him. You wouldn't. It was either him or Nate Pearson I wanted, so you wouldn't do it.
Thanks.
So now you don't get Josh Bell.
Yeah, take that.
Well, I mean, you hate to have to pencil in Vladdy Guerrero Jr. into first base every day, but you pick your battles. So.
Yeah, right. real tough gig there, Steve.
Real excited to watch him hit at PNC because, I mean, the Renegades on the Rotunda should probably be worried. To be honest, he can hit them. So I'm pretty excited to watch him play.
I mean, the best battle is going to be Brian Hayes versus Matt Chapman. I mean, you are literally seeing the 2 best third basemen in each league.
Yeah,
I mean, I have no doubt. Hayes is the best.
A lot of people aren't aware of him in Toronto, at least from our side of things. And so, that'll be cool to watch.
Yeah, he is a terrific third baseman. Pirates, I think, we just had our September call-up, so we get to look forward to probably seeing a new starter in this series. Johan Oviedo is probably going to get a crack in this series. And that's pretty exciting. We just traded for him with the Jose Quintana deal, so looking forward to getting our eyes on him. Plus, Lord knows they needed to bring up another real starter. So that's another thing. You guys, I'm pretty sure you guys got 5 starters that have actually started all year, right? I mean, we don't.
No, we've got.
Well, it's better than us. Let's put it that way.
We've got between 3 and 4. When the season started, Ross Stripling was the long man / swing man out of the bullpen, and he's been in the rotation most of the year and honestly blown the lid off anybody's expectations. He's done so well. And then at 5:59 on deadline day, they snuck in a trade for Mitch White from the Dodgers, and he's been up and down. He's had a couple good games. His last game, not so much. And, well, we're still kind of seeing what he is, but...
Want to finish the show with World Series predictions? Why not, right? Let's do World Series predictions. Off the cuff. Jim, you don't get to study, so get that look off your face.
I know. I'm looking straight down like Rodolfo Castro at my cell phone.
I'm going to go Atlanta and New York. That's my World Series, and I think Atlanta wins it.
Interesting.
I think Atlanta's going back to back.
Well, Steve, I need more time. So someone else go.
Steve, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I should be a man of my word, like I did on my show with the Feck U projections, and say it's the Blue Jays and the Phillies. But honestly, I think
That's okay. Just don't promote the show, and none of your guys will know.
I'm not sure anybody even knew I did it anyway. But I'm going to say it's going to be the Astros and the Braves, and I think the Astros, assuming they can get enough trash cans in to the park.
They don't need them now. They got pitch comms.
Yeah. I mean, you have supply chain issues, so maybe you can't get the right tone that you want with your trash can. But I think the Astros over the Braves in 6 games.
They are good again, aren't they? Jim, it's only fair. You got to be next.
All right, I'm going to go Astros Braves, and I'm going to take the Braves.
All right.
How about you,
Pretty
Karen?
consistent. Karen, how about you?
2017 rematch, Astros Dodgers, and it'll be the revenge series. Dodgers win.
That would actually be kind of cool from that standpoint.
That would be a pretty cool storyline, right?
Yeah. So I could live with that as much as I possibly can as a Pirates fan.
Guys, this was great. Thank you so much for joining us. And
Thanks for
why don't you
having
tell people how to get a hold of you, just so they can follow along with what's going on with Toronto through the playoff race here. Karen, I'll start with you. How do people get a hold of you?
Right. Yeah. So I'm on Twitter, and I'm actually there a fair bit. So my username is just like it says there, Karen Sutar with a 1 on the end. And pretty addicted to the social media. So I'm on. You want to talk baseball or other reasonable topics where there is mutual respect? That easy to find. Go Blue Jays.
Well, we just became friends, and you've already told me I'm going to fail. I mean, like, no, Steve, how about you, brother? Everybody knows you here, but
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Feckless Wonder. That's a name that I was bestowed upon me by Sean Doyle at Jays from the Couch. Karen and I both write for JaysFromTheCouch.com on a pretty regular basis. And coming up Saturday, it's a non-Jays from the Couch project, but I'm going to be co-hosting with Christian Rao on Slasher Sports, a Saturday morning college football show.
that's pretty exciting because I have recently started a college team podcast, the H2P podcast on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network.
I noticed that, yes.
So check that out.
And actually, Pitt WVU is the leadoff story for us, even though it'll be a day removed from Saturday. That's actually the number one story for us on the college podcast. That's what
We'll decide. I'll decide on Friday after this game whether it's going to be my leadoff story or not. I might just go right to Tennessee. But regardless, Jim, how do people get a hold of you, brother?
Yeah, so Twitter 24/7. It is at Jim Stamm 22 or for the city _412. All Pittsburgh all the time. It's let's go Bucs. It's here we go. It's hail to Pitt, especially right now, and and let's go Pens, and so
Everything.
that's it. Yeah,
And
everything.
Ben, since I know you watch the show, before you say "Let's go Bucs" to finish it off, I just want you to know that your dad's a liar, and he's the one that wanted you to lose the playoff game, not me. I am still nice Uncle Gary. It's cool.
Uh-huh.
So go ahead and take it away, brother.
Let's go Bucs!